Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Create, Reach and Inspire.
Next on Create, Reach, Inspire.
And today we're going to be talking about the competition. Dun, dun, dun. And why it's very, very important that I think you shouldn't be obsessing over your competition, and also why doing so can really be setting yourself up to fail.
Subscribe on your favourite app to get the latest episode lightning fast.
All right, welcome along to this week's episode. Great to have you back. If you're the fourth time listening, if you've been with us since the beginning, good to have you with us. Or maybe if you're new to the show, this week we're talking about competition in business and why it's really, really bad to really obsess over competition. And I see a lot of people doing this. In fact, when I first got started in business, this was something I was really guilty of doing. There was a company which no longer exists called Stream Solutions, which was one of our competitors in the streaming world. And I remember when I was sort of 16, 17, I was getting started. The two guys who were running this were probably a little bit older, maybe 10 years older than me. And we kind of started around the same time. And I was totally and utterly obsessed with every single move they were doing. I would log onto their website. I was constantly looking at what features they were bringing out. And this was kind of before the days it was kind of cool to have an internet company as well. So this was back in like 2004, 2005, 2006, around then. And I was literally just constantly looking at this website, and I fell trapped of becoming victim, thinking, God, these two guys, they're older than me, you know, they've got more experience, they're growing quicker, they understand the market more, and everything they did kind of, I dwelled upon. I think until one day when I sort of naturally came to a conclusion that what I was doing was wrong, because I was obsessing over the competition for 24/7, it was holding me back. And then as sort of I progressed throughout my journey, I started to realise what my talent was, which was something that they didn't pay any attention to whatsoever, which was actually marketing and how to sell products and how to kind of package everything up and make it a lot more cool and sexy. Theirs products were kind of maybe technically better than mine at that time. However, they didn't have a bloody clue how to make it look good to the audience. So this is why duplicating everything your competition is doing can be really dangerous, because ultimately, you know, if you're just doing everything they're doing and they're getting average results, then you're going to just get average results as well. And what it does really is just kind of compounds these negative thoughts, which you need to collapse immediately. Because worrying about the competition is completely unnecessary. It's a distraction, a massive distraction. This is what was happening to me back then. This was just completely and utterly distracting me day after day. I was focusing on all the wrong things, and it was making me really paranoid for no good reason whatsoever. And ultimately, when you're running a business, whether you're just starting out, and back then it was just me on my own, I kind of was the support guy, I was the sales guy, I was the marketing guy, I was also the developer and the technical guy. So a lot of things to juggle, a lot of things going on, really wasn't being helped by the fact that I was totally paranoid and, you know, constantly spending all this time looking at what the competition was doing.
Visit createreachinspire.com and subscribe today.
Right, so the takeaways really from the story I've just told were the fact that I was getting really distracted from what was actually important, which was becoming good at marketing, because back then I really didn't understand marketing. It was kind of a new thing to me. But when I turned a new leaf and I stopped worrying about what these other guys were doing, of course, my results started to drastically improve. And then, of course, it got to a stage where a year or two down the line, they were no longer the leaders. I had gone, a million miles an hour ahead of them and really just left them in the dust. So this is kind of crucial if you're starting a business or, you're working on a new startup. I still sometimes find myself being guilty of it now, but don't worry about the competition. Perhaps you're in a market where you have a lot of competition from bigger companies and you're a startup. That could be a good thing because bigger companies don't move as quickly as startup. There's a classic case of this. Look at Netflix and Blockbuster. We all remember from growing up those big blue and yellow signs, the big stores, all the real estate, filled with DVDs, filled with videos back in the 90s. They were all over the place. Blockbuster was this absolute huge company, had multinational presence in different countries. And then Netflix came along as a startup and kind of like slowly but surely took the business away, and all of a sudden Netflix, and all of a sudden Blockbuster has, and then, fast forward sort of 15, 20 years, Blockbuster pretty much is no more. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Haven't thought about that for a while, but that's a really, really good example of why not to worry about the competition, even if they're this huge, seemingly unbeatable company, but they're slow moving, they can't work quickly, and startups can sometimes come in and take a market by storm, or certainly take a good grasp over a specific kind of portion of a market. How about if one of your competitors gets bought out? Perhaps you're a startup and, ultimately a lot of us have that sort of end sale, that acquisition in mind. But, if your competitors get bought out by a bigger company, that can also be a good thing, because although the competition might have been moving very quickly, suddenly they get acquired by a huge company and everything starts moving a lot slower. So again, not necessarily a bad thing. So what to do instead of worrying about competition? Well, you need to be focusing on what you can control. As an entrepreneur or a startup founder, there are certain things that you are in control of. And the good thing about having a small company is you're in control of the whole thing, particularly if you don't have, this huge board of directors or whatever. You can really focus in on what it is important to you, which could be, in my case, going back to the example of when I was very young, what I could control was actually the marketing and packaging the product better than how they were packaging theirs. Single-mindedness is always absolutely key. You don't have time to be looking at what is in the rearview mirror constantly, but instead you need to be looking at what is in front of you. I know that's kind of cheesy, but it actually rings really true when you're talking about the competition. So you should be working on what should set you apart. Finally, you want to be a thought leader in your industry. We've had competitors over the years who are constantly trying to mimic our content marketing strategy or copy some of our product features or even just copy our product. And, a lot of the time that's a good thing, because ultimately we're setting the way. We're kind of saying, right, this is how things are done. We're an expert in this field. And I think people can kind of see that, because although they're trying to copy you, they never really manage to mimic exactly what you've managed to do, never exactly lives up to what you're doing. You need to make sure you're absolutely doing your best work all the time. So I will leave you with this thought. Don't be ripping people off. Don't be trying to copy what the competition are doing. Be single-minded. Goes back to my 3 commandments, which I talked about in episode number 1 of this series. And be doing your best work, be trying to push everything forward in the right direction rather than looking in the rearview mirror constantly.
Subscribe today at createreachinspire.com.
All right, guys, thanks very much for listening to this episode. Remember to subscribe and share, and I will speak to you again in a couple of weeks' time.